The ancient elevator in Greenview Towers groaned as Sofia Martinez stepped inside, clutching her 6-month-old daughter Emma to her chest. Rain dripped from her threadbare coat onto the stained carpet. She'd been on her feet for 12 hours straight, working double shifts at the diner, and her whole body ached with exhaustion. The babysitter had called in sick at the last minute, forcing Sofia to bring Emma to work, tucked away in the break room while she served tables. Now all she wanted was to collapse into her bed in the tiny studio apartment on the 14th floor. Just as the doors began to close, a polished leather shoe wedged between them. The doors shuddered and reopened, revealing a tall man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sofia's monthly rent. His tie was loosened slightly, and his dark hair showed traces of silver at the temples. He carried a sleek briefcase that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "Sorry," he said, stepping in. His eyes briefly met Sofia's before flicking away. Sofia pressed herself against the wall, instinctively protecting Emma, who had begun to stir. The last thing she needed was for her daughter to start crying in this confined space with a stranger who clearly didn't belong in this building. The man pressed the button for the penthouse, floor 20. Of course, Sofia thought, the mysterious penthouse that had been renovated for months. Rumors had circulated among the tenants about some wealthy businessman buying it, but no one had seen him until now. "Which floor?" he asked, his voice unexpectedly gentle. 14, please. It's already pressed." He nodded and stood with his back to the wall, checking his watch. Sofia noticed his cufflinks, small, tasteful diamonds that caught the light. Emma squirmed and let out a small whimper. "How old?" the man asked, surprising Sofia with the question. 6 months, she replied cautiously. He smiled slightly. "My sister just had her second. They're a handful at that age." Before Sofia could respond, the elevator jerked violently. Emma woke fully now, startled by the sudden movement, and began to wail. The lights flickered, and with a final metallic groan, the elevator ground to a halt between the 7th and 8th floors. "No, no, no," Sofia muttered, bouncing Emma gently. "Not tonight. Please, not tonight." The man's posture changed immediately. He put down his briefcase and pressed the emergency call button. Nothing happened. He tried again, holding it longer this time. Still nothing. "Looks like it's out of order," he said, pulling out his phone. "No signal either, typical." Sofia felt panic rising in her chest. Emma's cries grew louder, echoing in the small space. "She's hungry," Sofia explained, fumbling in her bag for a bottle. "And I think she needs changing." The man nodded, seemingly unperturbed by the situation. "I'm Daniel, by the way, Daniel Blackwood." The name registered somewhere in Sofia's mind. She'd seen it in the newspaper, something about a tech company or investments. But Emma's cries demanded her full attention. "Sofia," she replied distractedly, finding the bottle but realizing it was empty. Her heart sank. She'd meant to prepare another one when she got home. Daniel watched her with an unreadable expression. "Do you have supplies to change her?" Sofia nodded, sinking to the floor and laying out her changing pad. "I always carry the essentials." It was embarrassing, changing her baby in front of this stranger, this CEO or whatever he was. But she had no choice. Emma's discomfort trumped her pride. To her surprise, Daniel sat down on the floor too, loosening his tie further and setting his jacket aside. "My sister would kill me if I didn't offer to help," he said. "I've changed more diapers than you might expect from someone in a suit." Sofia hesitated, then handed him a fresh diaper from her bag. Their fingers brushed, and she noticed calluses on his hands, unexpected for someone who looked like he spent his days behind a desk. As Daniel helped with Emma, Sofia observed him more carefully. Despite his expensive clothes and authoritative presence, there was something approachable about him. His movements were gentle and practiced, as he entertained Emma with silly faces while Sofia prepared for the diaper change. "You're good with her," Sofia commented, surprised by the ease with which he handled her daughter. Daniel smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. "Kids are the best judges of character. They don't care about titles or bank accounts." The emergency lights kicked in, casting the elevator in a dim, amber glow. Sofia changed Emma quickly, and to her relief the baby settled down, fascinated by Daniel's wristwatch as he dangled it just out of reach. "So," Daniel said after a moment of silence, "you live on the 14th floor. I've just moved into the building." Sofia nodded. wondering why someone who could afford the penthouse would want to live in Greenview Towers. The building had seen better days, with frequent maintenance issues and security concerns. "I've lived here for 2 years," she said. "Since before Emma was born." "And her father?" Daniel asked, then quickly added, "I'm sorry, that's none of my business." Sophia tensed but answered anyway. "He left when I told him I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready to be a father." She didn't know why she was sharing this with a stranger, but something about being trapped in an elevator broke down normal social barriers. Daniel's expression darkened. "His loss," he said simply, tickling Emma's foot and earning a gurgle that might have been a laugh. The minutes stretched into an hour. They talked about nothing and everything. The neighborhood, the weather, Daniel's recent move from Chicago. Sophia found herself relaxing despite their circumstances. Emma eventually fell asleep in her arms, her tiny features peaceful in the dim light. "You must think I'm crazy," Daniel said suddenly, "buying the penthouse in this building." Sophia shrugged. "It crossed my mind." He laughed softly. "I grew up in a building not unlike this one, in Queens. My mother raised 3 kids on a teacher's salary after my father died." His eyes grew distant. "I promised myself that if I ever made something of myself, I'd remember where I came from." Before Sophia could respond, the elevator lurched again. Emma startled awake but didn't cry this time. Instead, she stared wide-eyed at the lights as they flickered back to full brightness. "Looks like we're back in business," Daniel said, standing and helping Sophia to her feet. The elevator began moving again, slowly at first, then with more confidence. When it reached the 14th floor, Sophia gathered her things, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look compared to Daniel's composed appearance. "This is me," she said unnecessarily as the doors opened. Daniel nodded, his expression unreadable again. "It was nice meeting you, Sophia, and you too, Emma," he added, gently touching the baby's hand. As Sophia stepped out of the elevator, Daniel called out, "Sophia, wait." She turned, raising an eyebrow. "There's something I need to tell you about why I'm here," he began, but was cut off by Emma's sudden wail. The baby was overtired and hungry, and Sophia knew she needed to get her fed and to bed immediately. "I'm sorry, I have to go," she said, already moving down the hallway. "Maybe another time." The elevator doors closed on Daniel's troubled expression, leaving Sophia wondering what he had been about to say, and why it had seemed so important. As she unlocked her apartment door, she couldn't shake the feeling that the encounter in the elevator was more than just a chance meeting. There was something in Daniel's eyes, when he mentioned buying the penthouse, something that suggested he wasn't telling her the whole story. Little did she know that their lives were about to become intertwined in ways she could never have imagined, and that the man in the elevator harbored secrets that would turn her world upside down. Sophia woke to the sound of Emma's hungry cries and the persistent pounding of rain against her window. After feeding her daughter and settling her back to sleep, she peered at the alarm clock. 5:15 a.m. Too early to go back to sleep, but too late to really rest before her morning shift at the diner. With a sigh, she slipped out of bed and made her way to the tiny kitchenette to brew a pot of coffee. As the machine gurgled to life, Sophia's mind wandered to the strange encounter in the elevator the previous night. There was something oddly familiar about Daniel Blackwood, though she couldn't place it. The name had been niggling at the back of her mind all night, disrupting her already fitful sleep. She pulled out her phone and typed his name into the search engine. Thousands of results appeared instantly. Daniel Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, a technology and real estate development company worth billions. Recent headlines announced his mysterious disappearance from the public eye 3 months ago, with speculation ranging from health issues to corporate scandals, and now he was living in the penthouse of her run-down apartment building? A notification popped up on her screen, a reminder about the rent due in 3 days. Sophia's stomach clenched. She was short again, despite the extra shifts she'd picked up. Between daycare costs, medical bills from Emma's recent ear infection, and the ever-increasing rent, she was drowning financially. The eviction notices had started coming 2 months ago, each one more threatening than the last. The buzz of her phone interrupted her spiraling thoughts. An unknown number with a text message. "Good morning, Sophia. This is Daniel from the elevator. I apologize for the early hour, but I wondered if you might have a moment to talk today. There's something important I'd like to discuss with you." Daniel Blackwood. Sophia stared at the screen, confusion and suspicion battling within her. How had he gotten her number, and what could he possibly want to discuss with her? Before she could respond, another message appeared. "Perhaps I should explain." The management office provided your contact information. I promise this isn't as strange as it seems. Sophia hesitated, then typed back, I work 7 to 3 at Green's Diner on 5th. Emma's with me. If you want to talk, that's where I'll be. The response came immediately. Thank you. I'll see you there. Throughout her morning shift, Sophia found herself glancing at the door whenever it opened, both dreading and anticipating Daniel's arrival. The diner was busier than usual, the rain driving people inside for hot coffee and comfort food. By noon, her feet were aching and her patience wearing thin as she juggled orders and checked on Emma in the break room between tables. Order up for table 7, Jerry, the cook, called out, sliding a plate of pancakes across the counter. As Sophia grabbed the plate, the bell above the door chimed. Daniel walked in, shaking raindrops from his umbrella. He'd traded yesterday's formal suit for dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck, but still looked completely out of place in the greasy diner. Their eyes met across the room, and he offered a hesitant smile. Sophia nodded toward an empty booth in her section and held up one finger, asking him to wait a minute while she delivered the food. When she returned to his table, order pad in hand, he was studying the laminated menu with the serious concentration of someone unused to dining in such establishments. The Turkey Club is good, she offered, and Jerry makes a decent cup of coffee. Daniel looked up, seeming relieved at the suggestion. I'll have both then. Thank you. Sophia jotted down his order. I'm due for a break in 15 minutes. Can this wait until then? He nodded, folding his hands on the table. Of course. Take your time. When Sophia returned with his food, she couldn't help but notice how he seemed to be observing everything. The other customers, the worn vinyl booths, the faded photographs on the wall, with intense interest, rather than the disdain she might have expected. 15 minutes later, after checking that Emma was still napping in her carrier, Sophia slid into the booth across from Daniel, her own cup of coffee clutched between her hands like a shield. You have 20 minutes, she said. What's so important that you needed to track me down? Daniel pushed his empty plate aside and leaned forward. I want to talk to you about Greenview Towers. Sophia's brow furrowed. What about it? I didn't just happen to move into the penthouse, Sophia. Blackwood Enterprises purchased the building 3 months ago. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter in Sophia's mouth. You're the new owner? The one who's been raising the rent and sending out eviction notices? Daniel's expression remained calm, but his eyes revealed discomfort. Not exactly. My company purchased the building, yes, but I've been away. Dealing with some personal matters. I wasn't aware of the specifics of how the property was being managed until recently. So, why are you telling me this? Sophia asked, her guard up. Because I've been reviewing the records since I returned, and I've found some concerning irregularities. The property manager, Victor Reeves, has been implementing policies I never approved, including arbitrary rent increases and aggressive eviction proceedings. Sophia's heart raced. Victor Reeves, the cold, calculating man who had been making her life miserable for months, who had laughed in her face when she asked for an extension on her rent payment when Emma was sick. That doesn't explain why you're telling me specifically, she said, still suspicious. Daniel hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on the table between them, but kept his hand on it. Your name appeared repeatedly in the correspondence. Reeves seems particularly determined to evict you, despite the fact that your payment history, prior to the recent increases, was exemplary. He paused. I found that curious, so I did some research. Something in his tone made Sophia's skin prickle. What kind of research? Your maiden name is Carter, isn't it? Sophia stiffened. She hadn't used that name in years, not since she left home at 18. How did you know that? Daniel slid the paper toward her. It was an old newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline read, Local teacher Helen Carter saves student from burning building. Beneath it was a photograph of a young woman, Sophia's mother, standing beside a teenage boy with a bandaged arm. The caption identified him as Daniel Blackwood, age 16. Your mother was my high school English teacher, Daniel said quietly. She ran back into a burning classroom to pull me out when I was trapped during a lab accident. She saved my life. Sophia stared at the photograph, memories flooding back. Her mother had rarely spoken of the incident, brushing it off as something anyone would have done. She had died of cancer when Sophia was 19, leaving her alone in the world. I didn't make the connection immediately, Daniel continued, But when I saw your name and began looking into it, I remembered her mentioning a daughter. The timing fit, and then I found your mother's obituary online, which confirmed it." Sophia looked up from the clipping, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "So what is this, some kind of charity because you felt you owed my mother?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, this is about correcting an injustice that's happening in a building I own. Reeves has been embezzling funds meant for building improvements and using evictions to bring in tenants willing to pay inflated rents. Your case just happened to be the one that caught my attention." "And the elevator breakdown last night?" Sophia asked. "Was that a coincidence or some elaborate setup?" "Complete coincidence," Daniel said with a wry smile. "Though not entirely surprising given the state of the building's maintenance. That's another thing I intend to address." Sophia's break timer beeped, interrupting the moment. She needed to get back to work, but her mind was reeling from the revelations. "I need to check on Emma and get back to my tables," she said, standing up. "So of course." Daniel stood as well, leaving money on the table for his meal, far more than necessary. "But there's something else we need to discuss, something about Victor Reeves that you should know. Could we talk after your shift ends?" Sophia hesitated, studying his face. Despite everything, she didn't sense any deception there, only a genuine concern that seemed at odds with his wealthy businessman persona. "My shift ends at 3, she finally said. "I need to pick up some groceries after, so I'll be at Marley's Market around 3:30. Daniel nodded. "I'll meet you there." As Sophia walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change dramatically. What she didn't know was that Daniel Blackwood was holding back the most shocking revelation of all, one that would explain why Victor Reeves was so determined to force her out of Greenview Towers, and one that would irrevocably tie their fates together in ways neither of them could have predicted. Rain continued to drum against the windows of Green's Diner as Sophia served her final customers of the day. Her mind kept drifting to Daniel and the newspaper clipping, to her mother's face frozen in that moment of accidental heroism. The connection seemed too coincidental, too perfect, like something from one of those paperback romance novels her co-worker Maggie was always reading during breaks. By the time her shift ended, Sophia had convinced herself that Daniel must have ulterior motives. Men like him, wealthy, powerful, didn't just appear in someone's life out of genuine concern. There had to be something else. She gathered Emma from the break room, relieved to find her daughter in good spirits after her nap. "Ready to go shopping, sweet girl?" she cooed, securing Emma in her carrier. The baby responded with a toothless grin that momentarily pushed aside Sophia's worries. Marley's Market was only a few blocks from the diner, but the persistent rain made the walk miserable. By the time Sophia pushed through the doors, both she and Emma were damp despite the umbrella. She grabbed a shopping cart, settling Emma's carrier in the child seat, and began methodically working through her mental list of essentials, focusing on items on sale and calculating the total as she went. She was examining expiration dates on marked-down yogurt when a familiar voice spoke from behind her. "They put the sale items in the back corner deliberately, you know. Market psychology." Sophia turned to find Daniel standing there, holding a small umbrella, and looking somewhat out of place among the after-work shopping crowd. He'd added a light jacket over his sweater, but still managed to look effortlessly polished. "Is that the kind of thing they teach in CEO school?" she asked, placing 2 yogurt containers in her cart. A smile touched his lips. "More like something my mother taught me. She could stretch $1 further than anyone I've ever known." The mention of his mother reminded Sophia of why they were meeting. "You said there was something I should know about Victor Reeves." Daniel glanced around. "Not here. Too many ears." He nodded toward the small cafe area at the front of the store. "Mind if we sit for a moment?" Reluctantly, Sophia followed him to a vacant table. Emma began to fuss, so she lifted her from the carrier and held her close, partly for comfort and partly as a barrier between herself and Daniel. "I've been investigating Reeves for weeks," Daniel began, keeping his voice low. "At first I thought it was simple financial misconduct, skimming maintenance funds, padding invoices. But it goes deeper than that." He pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph of Victor Reeves standing with another man outside an office building. "Do you recognize the other man?" Sophia studied the image. The second man was older, with silver hair and expensive clothes. Something about his face struck her as vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. "No, should I?" "His name is Howard Kellerman. He owns Pinnacle Development Corporation." The name clicked. The company that's been buying up buildings all over the neighborhood and turning them into luxury condos, Daniel nodded. The very same. Kellerman has been trying to acquire Greenview Towers for years, but the previous owner refused to sell. When it finally came on the market, Blackwood Enterprises outbid Pinnacle, which apparently didn't sit well with Kellerman. What does this have to do with Reeves, or with me? Sophia shifted Emma to her other shoulder, growing impatient. Reeves is working for Kellerman, Daniel said bluntly. He was planted in my company to sabotage the building from within, deferred maintenance, tenant harassment, creating paper trails of code violations. The goal is to make the building seem like a liability, so I'll sell it at a loss. Sophia's eyes widened. That's illegal, isn't it? Highly, and I have enough evidence to prove it. Daniel leaned closer. But here's where you come in. I found a separate file Reeves kept on you specifically. He's been documenting your every move, every late payment, every complaint. A chill ran down Sophia's spine. She thought of the times she'd felt watched in the hallways, the maintenance requests that went mysteriously unfixed in her apartment, while others were repaired promptly. But why me? I'm nobody, just a single mom struggling to get by. Daniel hesitated, and Sophia could see him choosing his words carefully. I believe it's because of the building's history. Before it was Greenview Towers, it was Carter Place Apartments. The name hit Sophia like a physical blow. Carter. Like my mother's family. The building was owned by your grandfather, Thomas Carter. When he died, ownership transferred to your mother, and after her death, it should have gone to me, Sophia finished, memories flooding back of conversations overheard as a child, paperwork her mother was always dealing with, the stress lines around her eyes when she talked about the property. But I never received anything. The lawyer told me there was nothing left after her medical bills. Daniel's expression darkened. That lawyer was Malcolm Reeves, Victor's father. Emma began to cry in earnest now, perhaps sensing her mother's distress. Sophia bounced her gently, trying to process this information. You're saying they stole my inheritance? An entire apartment building? The paper trail is complicated, but essentially, yes. Malcolm Reeves fabricated documents showing your mother had sold the building before her death to cover medical expenses. The buyer was a shell company that eventually sold to the owner I purchased it from. So the building is mine. Sophia's voice wavered between hope and disbelief. Legally, it's complicated, Daniel admitted. The fraud happened years ago, and there have been multiple legitimate transactions since then. But morally, yes, I believe you have a claim. Sophia's head was spinning. If what Daniel was saying was true, her years of struggling to make rent, of working double shifts and living paycheck to paycheck, all while the building that should have been hers generated profits for others. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. You could have kept quiet, no one would have known. Daniel's eyes met hers, steady and sincere. Because I owe everything to your mother. My life, my education, the scholarship I received after the fire was arranged by her. She believed in me when no one else did. He paused. And because it's the right thing to do. Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. She shifted Emma to check it, then froze. It's from Reeves, she said, her voice tight. He says there's been a pipe burst in my apartment and I need to come immediately. Daniel's expression changed instantly. Don't go back there. Not alone. All my things, Emma's things. It's a trap, Sophia. Reeves must have discovered I've been investigating him. He knows I've been talking to you. As if on cue, Daniel's phone rang. He answered, his face growing increasingly grim as he listened. When he hung up, he looked at Sophia with alarm. That was my security team. Reeves was seen entering your apartment 20 minutes ago with 2 men. They weren't carrying plumbing equipment. Sophia clutched Emma tighter. What do? We go to the police, Daniel said firmly. I have evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and now breaking and entering. But we need proof they're in my apartment, Sophia argued. By the time the police respond, they could be gone. Daniel seemed to wrestle with a decision. Finally, he said, There's something else you should know. The reason I disappeared from public view 3 months ago wasn't a corporate scandal or health issue like the press speculated. He took a deep breath. My wife, Rebecca, died in a car accident. The investigation suggested it might not have been an accident at all, but rather related to my business dealings, specifically my acquisition of properties Kellerman wanted. The revelation struck Sophia like a physical blow. You think they're dangerous? I think we need to be careful, Daniel replied. Kellerman plays hardball and Reeves is desperate. They've already stolen your birthright once. Who knows what they'd do to keep that secret buried? Emma began to wail in earnest now, overtired and sensing the tension. As Sophia tried to comfort her, an elderly woman approached their table. Excuse me, she said, peering at Sophia. I don't mean to intrude, but are you Helen Carter's daughter? Sophia stared at the woman in surprise. Yes, I am. The woman smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. I thought so. You look just like her. I'm Margaret Wilson. I was the school nurse when your mother worked at Westridge High. I was there the day of the fire. She glanced at Daniel. And you must be the boy she saved. Daniel, wasn't it? I'd recognize those eyes anywhere. Daniel stood and offered his hand. Mrs. Wilson, it's been years. Indeed it has. She looked between them curiously. What a coincidence, running into both of you together after all this time. Sophia and Daniel exchanged glances. Not entirely a coincidence, Sophia said carefully. Mrs. Wilson's smile faded slightly. Well, I should let you get back to your conversation. But before I go, she opened her purse and pulled out a small yellowed envelope. Helen gave this to me years ago, asked me to keep it safe, said it was insurance in case anything ever happened to her. I've carried it all these years, not knowing what to do with it, but seeing you two together, maybe it's finally found its rightful owner. She pressed the envelope into Sophia's free hand. Your mother was a remarkable woman. She knew some powerful people were after the building, even back then. She prepared for the worst. As Mrs. Wilson walked away, Sophia stared at the envelope, her hands trembling. What twist of fate had brought Mrs. Wilson to this exact store at this exact moment? Open it, Daniel urged quietly. With shaking fingers, Sophia tore open the seal and pulled out a single folded document. As she read it, her eyes widened in disbelief. It's a trust document, she whispered, placing the building in a blind trust for me, with explicit instructions about what to do if anyone tried to falsify a sale. She looked up at Daniel, tears forming in her eyes. She knew. She was trying to protect me even then. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He checked it, his expression hardening. We need to move. Now. Reeves just left your apartment with a briefcase. My security team is following him, but we should get you and Emma somewhere safe. As they hurried toward the exit, Sophia clutched both Emma and the document that might change everything. The game had suddenly become much more dangerous, and the stakes far higher than she had ever imagined. Lightning flashed across the darkening sky as Daniel ushered Sophia and Emma into his sleek black SUV parked behind Marley's Market. His driver, a broad-shouldered man named James who barely spoke, navigated them through the rain-slicked streets away from Greenview Towers. Where are we going? Sophia asked, securing Emma's carrier in the back seat. A hotel for tonight, Daniel replied, his eyes scanning the traffic behind them. Tomorrow we'll meet with my legal team. That document your mother left is crucial evidence, but we need to make sure it holds up in court. Sophia clutched the yellowed envelope, her mind racing. I still can't believe this is happening. Yesterday I was just trying to make rent, and today she trailed off, the magnitude of the situation overwhelming her. Daniel's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. He answered it on speaker. Mr. Blackwood, this is Thompson from security. We followed Reeves to an office building downtown, Pinnacle headquarters. He went straight to Kellerman's office with the briefcase. Should we continue surveillance? Yes, but keep your distance. These men are more dangerous than we thought. Daniel ended the call and turned to Sophia. We need to know what was in that briefcase. You think it was something from my apartment? The thought of strangers rifling through her belongings made her skin crawl. I think they were looking for exactly what Mrs. Wilson just gave you, proof of the building's true ownership. They must have realized I was investigating them and panicked. The SUV pulled up to the Westmont Hotel, a luxury establishment that made Sophia acutely aware of her waitress uniform and rain-dampened hair. Daniel seemed to sense her discomfort. Don't worry about appearances, he said gently. The staff here are discreet, and the security is excellent. Once they were settled in a spacious suite, with Emma asleep in a portable crib the hotel had provided, Sophia finally allowed herself to process the day's events. She sat at the elegant dining table across from Daniel, the trust document spread between them. My mother never told me about any of this, she said, tracing her finger over Helen Carter's signature. She worked so hard, 2 teaching jobs plus weekend tutoring. I always assumed we were just getting by. She was protecting you, Daniel replied. If you'd known about the building, you might have become a target sooner. Sophia looked up at him, studying his face in the warm lamplight. And what about you? You said your wife died because of business dealings with Kellerman. Why risk getting involved with me and Emma? Pain flickered across Daniel's features. After Rebecca died, I withdrew from everything. The business, social circles, life in general. Then 3 weeks ago, my sister, the one with the babies I mentioned, she basically staged an intervention. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She reminded me that Rebecca wouldn't have wanted me to stop living. So I came back, started reviewing what had happened in my absence, and discovered the irregularities at Greenview. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. When I realized who you were, Helen Carter's daughter, it felt like, I don't know, like the universe was giving me a chance to repay an old debt, to do something right after months of just existing. Their eyes met across the table, and something unspoken passed between them, a connection forged through shared loss and unexpected circumstances. The moment was broken by Daniel's phone buzzing again. This time, it was a text with an attached image. My team got into the building's security system, he explained, showing Sophia the screen. It displayed a grainy security camera image of Reeves and another man standing outside her apartment door. They've gone back to your place. Sophia's chest tightened with fear. What are they looking for? They already took whatever was in that briefcase. Daniel's brow furrowed as he studied the image. I don't think they're looking for something. I think they're planting something. He zoomed in on the image, revealing a small canister in the second man's hand. That looks like... God, I think it's a smoke bomb or some kind of accelerant. They're going to burn down my apartment? Sophia's voice rose in panic, causing Emma to stir in her sleep. Not just your apartment, the whole building, potentially. Daniel was already on his feet, dialing his phone. They're desperate. If they can't have the building, they'd rather destroy it and collect the insurance than let it revert to its rightful owner. But there are families living there. Children, elderly people. I know. Daniel spoke urgently into the phone, alerting both his security team and the fire department before turning back to Sophia. I need to go there. Now. I'm coming with you, Sophia said, standing. Absolutely not. You need to stay here with Emma where it's safe. That's my home, Daniel. Those are my neighbors, people I've lived alongside for years. And if what you say is true, it's my building. I'm not sitting here while Reeves destroys it. Their argument was interrupted by a knock at the door. Daniel approached cautiously, checking the peephole before opening it to reveal a petite woman with Daniel's eyes and a determined expression. Mia, he said, surprised. What are you doing here? James called me, she replied, stepping inside. Said you might need backup with the baby. She spotted Sophia and smiled warmly. You must be Sophia. I'm Mia, Daniel's sister and professional baby wrangler. She glanced between them, sensing the tension. What's happening? Daniel quickly explained the situation. Mia listened, her expression growing serious. Go, she said when he finished. Both of you. Emma will be fine with me. I've got 2 of my own, remember. And it sounds like you need all hands on deck. Sophia hesitated, looking at her sleeping daughter. I promise she'll be safe, Mia assured her. James is outside the door, and hotel security is on alert. Go save your building. 20 minutes later, Sophia and Daniel were rushing through the lobby of Greenview Towers. The fire alarm was already blaring, and residents streamed toward the exits in various states of undress and panic. The fire started on the 14th floor, the building's night manager informed them, coughing through the smoke that had begun to fill the hallways. Fire department's on the way. Daniel grabbed Sophia's arm as she instinctively moved toward the elevators. No, those will be shut down. We need the emergency stairs. They pushed against the flow of evacuating residents, climbing to the 14th floor. The smoke grew thicker as they approached, and Sophia could feel the heat intensifying. My apartment's at the end of the hall, she shouted over the alarm, pulling her shirt over her nose and mouth. Through the haze, they spotted 2 figures hurrying away from her apartment door, Reeves and his accomplice. They froze when they saw Daniel and Sophia. It's over, Reeves, Daniel called out. The police are on their way and we have the trust document. Your father's fraud is exposed. Reeves's face contorted with rage. You think you've won? By the time the fire department puts this out, there won't be any building left to claim. Kellerman will still buy the land for pennies on the dollar. You're willing to risk people's lives for a real estate deal? Sophia's voice cracked with disbelief. Business is business, Reeves sneered. Now get out of our way. Behind them, Sophia's apartment door was now visibly smoldering, smoke seeping through the cracks. The sprinkler system had activated, but it clearly wasn't enough to contain whatever they had planted. Daniel stepped forward, blocking their path. You're not going anywhere except jail, Reeves. The second man lunged suddenly, shoving Daniel hard against the wall. Reeves used the distraction to make a run for the stairs, but Sophia reacted instinctively, sticking out her foot. He went down hard, his head cracking against the floor. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air as firefighters rushed up the stairs, quickly subduing Reeves's accomplice and beginning to battle the blaze. Police officers followed, taking statements and securing Reeves, who was now sporting a bloody gash on his forehead. Outside, Sophia stood wrapped in a blanket, watching as residents gathered in groups, checking on neighbors and sharing their stories of escape. Daniel approached, having just finished speaking with the fire chief. The fire's contained, he said. They caught it in time. Your apartment suffered the worst damage, but the building's structure is sound. Sophia nodded, relief washing over her. And Reeves? Being taken to the hospital under police guard. Once he's treated, he'll be arrested. Fraud, arson, attempted murder, the list goes on. Kellerman too, once the investigation connects all the dots. He hesitated, then added, I know this doesn't fix everything, but I want you to know that Blackwood Enterprises will cover temporary housing for all affected residents, including you and Emma, until repairs are complete. Sophia turned to face him fully. And after that? After that, well, that's up to you. The legal process to restore your ownership will take time, but with your mother's document and my testimony, the outcome seems clear. You'll be the rightful owner of Greenview Towers. The enormity of it all hit Sophia anew. I don't know the first thing about running an apartment building. You could sell it, Daniel suggested. It's worth millions even in its current state. Or I could learn, Sophia said, surprising herself with the determination in her voice. These people are my community. I don't want to abandon them to another corporate landlord who might be just as bad as Reeves. Daniel smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. If that's what you decide, I'd be happy to help. Property management is one of Blackwood Enterprises' specialties, after all. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as the emergency vehicles began to disperse and the immediate crisis subsided. I should get back to Emma, Sophia finally said, reality intruding on the moment. Of course, my car's waiting. As they walked toward the SUV, Sophia glanced back at the building, her building, standing resilient despite Reeves's best efforts to destroy it. Just like her mother had been resilient, and like Sophia herself had proven to be. Thank you, she said quietly. Not just for tonight, but for everything. For caring enough to investigate, for connecting the dots, for finding me. Daniel's hand brushed against hers, tentative but reassuring. Maybe it was your mother's final gift to both of us, a chance to right an old wrong and perhaps to start something new. As dawn broke over the city, painting the rain-washed streets in gentle gold, Sophia thought about new beginnings, for herself, for Emma, for the residents of Greenview Towers, and maybe, just maybe, for her and Daniel too. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years it was filled with possibility rather than struggle. Sometimes, she reflected, life's greatest blessings arrive in the most unexpected packages, even a broken-down elevator that forces two strangers to truly see each other.